Welcome back. I'm Staci Owen with The Hopeful Connection, and I have Brandy Fajen joining me today. Brandy and her husband Dave are a host home for us and have been for
almost 7 years.
Almost 7 years. Okay, so welcome, Brandy.
Thanks.
I just want to talk and really lean into your experience and just your mission, throughout your adult life as far as serving as a host home. I know you guys have been in foster care, a lot of different community missions that you have been a part of. So you mentioned 7 years as a host home, several more in foster care.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about just your experience of how you started into foster care and then what led into becoming a host home.
Okay, so I owned my own daycare center, and it was pretty large. I loved every bit of it. And one day a parent walked in and was telling me about a baby that needed a home. And that just was intriguing to me. I just was like, this is a human being.
Yep.
And, I thought I would be a foster parent sometime later in life, but not in my early 20s. And so I don't know. I went home and talked to my husband about it, and he was like, no. And I said, well, just let's pray about it together. And we did. And, we got to visit this little guy, and next thing I know, he was in our home, and we'd done the classes, and we wound up adopting him, and then we continued to be foster parents. So,
yeah. And I think we see that a lot of times, even on the host home and foster care side, that teachers, daycare workers, people that have connections to different kids, that's how they end up in our field, whether it's foster care because of a kid that they have in their class or in their school. And so I think that has drawn a lot of people in that may not have already considered doing foster care.
So we got started in foster care. Obviously, I kind of told you a little bit about that. And so having a daycare and everybody knowing I do foster care, I had an employee who really kept talking to me about restoring hope. And, I was a very busy lady. I was serving on the school board, and I just kind of put it on the back burner. And in 2018, I really wanted to start being able to be in the community more and do some, ministry type work. And she kept talking to me about restoring hope. At the same time, Kim Yates, who was a foster parent with me, through the children's division side for many years, was switching to restoring hope. And so I kind of, was like, okay, I'll check this out. And I went through the process and kind of talked to Whitney Schnackenberg a lot. And I'm one of those individuals that I really have to sit back and watch and take everything in. And I did. And I really asked a lot of questions. And one of the things that I really liked was Amber Ebling's reply to a few things in the MANT training. She would make little, comments and say things that would really stand out to me. And one was, be kind to somebody who needs a friend today. And it just kind of perked my interest. I was like, because all those years of working with children and individuals with disabilities, not everybody's kind. And so I'm also an individual who likes to see others walk in integrity and practice what they preach. So for the longest time, I would sit back and watch. If I'm going to do it, I want to know that it's something that is, a worthy cause or something that I can be happy and proud to say I'm a part of.
Yeah.
And so, sitting back and watching, there was some key moments that I really took away from my experience in the beginning with Restoring Hope. One is I listened to the owners of the company speak. They had come to one of the early on conferences, and we share the same faith and values, but then them really giving you credit for pushing the company forward and, growing it and doing everything you've done. I was like, okay, because it's a company that you're not only proud to be a part of, you're helping individuals and serving them, which makes, them have a wonderful life. But it was really good for me and my heart, and my family. But again, I had to put my stamp of approval on it. And there was key moments like that I took away. And then I was in hook, line, and sinker. And so, over the years, I've referred like 12 families. And that's how much I believe in Restoring Hope and what we do to serve our individuals. And so my first placement was a young man. I don't know if we're allowed to say his name, but what we call him, John G.
Yeah.
And, God really orchestrates everything is the way my belief is and the way I feel. My husband is a police officer, and he used to pick him up out of the ditch drunk and take him back to the facility that he lived in. He has a wonderful guardian who, was like, hey, John, where do you see your future? What do you want? And he just wanted a family.
Yep.
His family had basically dumped him off there. He had gotten in a horrible car accident and had some disabilities. They, kind of took his money and left him in this facility. And so she was a wonderful public administrator. And I don't know, can I say her name?
Yeah.
Lori Schroeder. She has been wonderful to our family and to him. And she just said, hey, buddy, we got to fix a few things and we're going to find you that family. And then, Amber brought him, out to see us, and the whole team, how the team plays an integral role in making sure that the individuals find the perfect family. Mm-hmm. That was another moment for me. I was like, okay, it isn't just a phone call. Hey, will you take this person?
Yeah.
It was, we need to find the right fit. So kind of like I said, David picking him up and knowing him, out of some of his naughty behaviors. After we met him and he left, my husband's like, Brandy, I know him. And so, we were those individuals that didn't look at him on his worst day. Mm-hmm. We were those individuals who was like, we're going to give this a shot. And so we're glad we did.
Yeah. And I think from just your experience in foster care, I think certain families come in and we think, oh, they would be great with our teens or our kids because they have done foster care and they know the world that we're in with this children's division side. But John was so far from the experience that you guys came into Restoring Hope with, but it really is that matching and shows like if you would have filled out a profile of what you felt like would fit well into your family, he probably wouldn't have been, that description.
Correct. I think also we were kind of wore out with teenagers for a while. We had adopted so many. We had a house full. We had a house full of kiddos. And so I think it was kind of almost a break for us.
Yeah.
Again, I am one of those individuals who I love a challenge. I'm up for the challenge. And so I think for us, we gave it a shot. They're like, we told him we would try, and then he got to come visit, the pre-placement visits. And our whole entire family just fell in love with John. John is not what he looked like on paper.
Yep.
And he has been a part of our family for almost 7 years now. My kids love John. John knows he's loved, and he loved having a family. I think you guys said it best at one of his ISP meetings. John is living his best life. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know and we've talked before that, our individuals live a whole different life before they come, potentially to a family with Restoring Hope. And I feel like John is, the definition of that. He had so many experiences prior to coming that may not have been positive experiences. But over the past 7 years, you guys have worked so hard in pouring into him with a lot of positive experiences. Like you said, your kids love him. He knows he's loved. Some of the experiences I know he shared with me and several other managers is, when Dave took him to his first Chiefs game. Mm-hmm. If anybody has been around him, they know he's a Chiefs fan, and he's had that opportunity. I know you guys have taken, several vacations, and he has a piece of that, and he is like, we're going on family vacation. I mean, those moments are pivotal in his life and his success. And I think that you guys have been able to pour so many of those things into him over the past 7 years.
Yeah. So I know that you hear a lot or I did on the foster care side. And I know that in a lot of our conferences, we talk about an individual, if one adult would, play a key role in a child's life, just one caring adult makes the difference. Well, what if you are now in your adult life and you've never had that one caring adult? And that's kind of the situation for John. And so when he came into our family, we wanted to spoil him. We wanted him to feel like he was a part of our family. So yes, he filled out a bucket list, and we have tried to fulfill that, and he is living his best life. Yeah.
Which is So amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing for you guys to have a front row seat at it, but so amazing for John
Yes, and
as
like I
well.
said, our we had teens, a bunch of teens at the time, and boy, John's mentality is about that level, and so they hit it off. You know, John would con him into taking him to Sonic, and they would play video games together, and he just fit right in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is how we want it to work.
Yes.
Okay, so new homes coming in, like you've mentioned it, that, you know, your husband's super involved in
hmm
things, your kids. What has that experience been to make it successful for you guys as a family unit?
So you have to see people. So when I say that, a lot of times we live such busy lives that, for example, if you were going through a traumatic time in your life, or you had, you know, a medical issue, and I would say that I'm going to pray for you. How many times do we hear that, but the person never takes the time to pray?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to see people, see what they need, and meet that need. Don't just make the promise and not follow through. So we knew John wanted to feel like he was part of the family. So we would even make sure that John was included in everything we did. So yes, John, you know, really needed somebody to just follow through with promises.
Mm-hmm.
He, you know, each consumer is different. You know, we've obviously, you know, have done a lot of respite,
Mm-hmm.
and every individual is different. What you might need is not what I might need. So we have to think that way for them as well. I think that John, more than anything, he wanted someone to just give him a little bit of praise. I don't think he ever had anybody say, "Good job, John," or "We're proud of you, John."
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that, not only seeing people, you know, for who they are, and, you know, making them feel important, you know, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
you got to follow through with that promise. So John had to know that our family was going to be there for him no matter what, and follow through with that promise. And then when John felt safe and secure, then he knew, hey, you know, it's okay to let my guard down. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to participate and act like I'm a part of the family. You know, I mean, it does take time. You know, I think when new families come in, they don't see that the consumer we got in the beginning wanted to kind of stay secluded. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't know quite what to do or how to act. He'd never had, you know, anybody care for him. He never had a family. He never was treated equal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I just really encourage the new families coming in. You know, there's a lot of times I get questions, you know, for a while, the big push in DFS was, "What's your why?" or "Why are you doing this?" And um, I loved that, you know, both Chuck and Jeff said on their podcast that we know that this is, some people, this is their income, but we also know that it's also a benefit. And
Mm-hmm.
so I tell the new families coming in, like, you have to understand that you are making a difference in somebody's life, and the benefit will be, in the end, it's rewarding for you.
Absolutely.
So I say that because when I say that John is a part of our life, so my kids have grown up now with Restoring Hope.
Mm-hmm.
They've seen the foster care side and they've seen the Restoring Hope side, and both of my adult children are, you know, are a part of Restoring Hope, and they do respite. And some of our teens that were in foster care at that time have, you know, talked to home office and applied.
Yeah.
So that's how impactful it is. And so when, you know, going back to the new host homes, I tell them it's bigger than you think. It means more than what you think it
Mm-hmm.
means. You know, you think, "Oh, I'm just going to help somebody for a while." It's not a dog or a cat. This is a human being. You're
Mm-hmm.
touching somebody's life, and ultimately it's going to touch yours.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I know I've heard that so many times that, you know, homes have got into this line of work or into Restoring Hope to help someone else, and then how much it's changed and impacted their life while trying to help somebody else. And it changes the whole dynamic of a family, for the good and the bad. I mean, it just, you know, if you're not used to it, it can take a minute to resettle the family and, you know, the changing dynamics.
yeah,
But really, those most successful families are the ones that do have, you know, the support and buy-in from all aspects of the family. And I
yeah,
think that, you know, that extended family and community is a huge piece of a lot of our lives. And in the host home, it becomes really important in our individuals' lives, you know,
yeah,
when they can go into the community and people know them, and call them by name and know what they participate in. what activities they're in. That's huge, and just building a community for them that's even bigger than just the host home.
Yeah. And I think it's also what you said there about the community is very, um, very key and very impactful. That's an impactful statement. The reason I say that is because you have cultivated a community within the Restoring Hope organization where we feel like family. So even the program managers down to the individuals who are working, in the medical ISLs, to the people at the Restoring Hope, home office, and even the owners and their wives, like everybody actually cares, number one. And number two, that community that we've created is a positive atmosphere. And so, like I said, when I was watching and just learning in the beginning, there was a couple OGs, some ladies who had, been doing it longer than me, and I would listen to them and learn from them. And so, I did some, relief in the beginning, and we loved it. And I still do relief, for those same individuals, and now they're a part of our family as well. So it's like an extended family. And so we've made those connections that you don't ever, you don't want to break them. It's hard to describe how impactful that is when you've just a smile or a hello has changed somebody's day, or, paying that attention and spending time with someone has really changed how they feel about themselves. And so I'm going to give you an example. My husband is a very manly man. He's a hunter. He's a police officer, but we do relief for a consumer who wanted to make cookies, and probably a consumer that wouldn't be safe handling, an oven, even with some assistance, And so my husband whipped out an Easy Bake Oven, and he's whipping out cookies right and left. And so when I say, it's just such a positive atmosphere, everybody wants to be involved. And then when people hear what we do or see our consumer, and we'll go in the community and they'll be like, is that John? And you're like, yeah. And they're just amazed.
Yeah.
And then, again, I tell them about Restoring Hope. So it makes me proud to be a part of Restoring Hope. And so, again, it doesn't just benefit the consumer, it will benefit everybody all the way around. It's a blessing no matter how you look at it.
Yeah. And I think that sense of community is so important. I know, like our regional parties that we have, whether it's a pool party or a Christmas party, like they're my favorite events of the entire year, when old families and new families are coming together, when our individuals that are new are meeting, individuals that have been around. And it's just like a big family reunion of Restoring Hope people. And we tell new families how important it is to get involved, create that community, because not every day is easy. And so on those hard days, it's a little bit easier when you can pick up the phone and call somebody that's been through those hard days and have lived it and made it out on the other side of that hard day, and have shared experiences. And so that sense of community is so important, just for everyone's success.
Yeah, you have to always be teachable. So, no matter how much you think somebody else can always you can bounce an idea off them, or they might know something. So I truly believe that if we all have to have that mentality of, okay, if I can't fix this situation, who can I call? And and listen to them, because maybe they had a scenario like that and they can help you. Like I said, in the beginning, there was some things that Restoring Hope did differently than Children's Division. And so I'm one of those individuals that if I'm going to do something, I want to do it to the best of my ability. And so I didn't hesitate. I would pick up the phone and call my program manager. I would call, another host home that had been doing it longer than me and be like, am I doing this right? So, I am just a person who really believes that everybody brings a different perspective to the table, and everybody is, has a different, belief system, but just being able to communicate and say, hey, what worked well for you and what didn't work well, I think is very important. And I felt like I could always call. It wasn't an organization where I was like, oh my gosh, can I call them?
Yeah.
I knew that if I had a problem that I could pick up the phone and get help. The supports through Restoring Hope are phenomenal. I I'm a huge fan of Children's Division, was for years for helping children. Then when I went to Restoring Hope and realized the supports there were just blew out of the water, this state agency, I was just like, whoa, you really help with that? Like, oh, okay. So I am very impressed that, the supports. And so a lot of our new families or other families may not know. And I'll be like, hey, by the way, did you read this memo or did you,
Right.
we have this going on or we have that going on and so it is just wonderful to see everybody working together for the betterment of another individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we've talked about John G. a little bit, and the success that you all found with him.
Yeah.
Really immediately. I know you've supported other individuals.
Yes.
When you're thinking about taking another individual into your home for placement, what's kind of the process that you and your husband follow to determine, if somebody might be a good fit in your family?
Yes. So for starters, I mean, with our kids growing up and them being different ages and different stages, that would be impactful about, well, we might want to give our kiddo a little bit more time, and attention while they're little. So we'll take an older one, so they wouldn't be fighting if they were the same age, So, I mean, we think of things like that, but mostly, there have been some individuals that we would serve for a season and we did well for that season. And then there was time for them to move on.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And then there's people, like I said, that we just have temporarily for, respite, and we love that. I think there's times when, for me, I can do that. I'm that person that's like, I'll do that. I can conquer anything. And I've also had to realize that maybe I can do that, but it may not be for me to do.
Yeah.
So we have to think.
Or it might be at the expense of something else.
Yeah. And so we've had to really consider that, like, can we serve this person well? One thing we didn't think of is our home equipped or adaptable to serve this person well? And so our family is a family that's always on the go. Even with John, he loves to go experience the things he never got to experience. So there's been consumers we've had to say no to because, they're a consumer that would need to be more of a stay at home, maybe get out occasionally, but stay at home. And our family is definitely go, go, go.
Yeah. Good point. So you mentioned that you may just be a season. And I think that can be a challenge for new homes and even seasoned homes, that they may just be a season for an individual. I know we see that frequently, whether it's, they're transitioning into a different chapter of their life, the home's transitioning to a different chapter. How do you, as a host home, how do you manage those feelings and emotions that come with maybe those transitions into other seasons for those individuals?
Yeah. For starters, one thing I like is if they do need to move to another place, we still get to see them. We see them at those parties, and you sometimes will have a forever connection, even if it's not a person you're serving in your home. I'm going to be honest, like, we've had some tough conversations in our home when they're like, why isn't so-and-so here anymore? And, we have to just navigate that and say, they're doing so much better where they are now. We can be their friend and we can always be family supports, but they're thriving somewhere else, better. So.
Yeah. And I think those are tough conversations. They're real conversations that we have all the time with host homes. And it can be really challenging just for homes to not see it as a failure. We have individuals that they may struggle in homes that are busy. They go to a home that they're more set up at home day in and day out, and they can do better. Doesn't take away from that host home that's really busy. That's just not, where they're at to be successful. Or we have, individuals that do better, without other individuals in the home or without kids in the home. And so I think that those conversations are really vital just for everyone's sake. And I think that, we move at such a rapid pace, they are humans. And so we're trying to surround them and get them in a setting that can support them. But we also don't want to forget or minimize the feelings that host homes have, because they've poured hours and hours and hours in to try to make this
Yeah.
person successful and integrated them in their family. And then it becomes a very sudden transition sometimes.
Yeah. So I had to learn that early on that it wasn't a failure if they
Mm-hmm.
needed, to go on down the road. And, but that is hard. That's hard for any
Mm-hmm.
person, any family to go through that. I think that, my program manager at the time in the beginning stages of Restoring Hope really told me, and, like, hey, Brandy, this is not a failure. You did, impact their lives. They learned a lot, but, maybe that it's better for them to go down the road. There's been situations where, after we get the individual in the home, we realize, oh, something came out that, they finally felt comfortable enough to disclose that, you know, a male had done something to them
Right.
and they're not comfortable around males. Well, maybe they need to go to a home with all females.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things that happen like that. That's not a failure on the consumer's part, and that's not a failure on my part. Maybe there's not a connection there. Maybe you're like, I've tried, but
Yep.
this individual just doesn't, want anything to do with me. And then you find out, well, the mom might have abused them when they were little, and so they need to be with
Yep.
men. There's always a reason and a backstory, so we can't beat ourselves up over it.
Mm-hmm.
But for me in the beginning stages, that was hard because I want to fix everybody and fix everything
Mm-hmm.
and just love them through it, and
Yep.
so naive, I guess would be the word. To think that we're the cure for everyone, but that's not the case. Which I agree, and I love that Restoring Hope says all the time, we'll find them the right fit. If
Mm-hmm.
that's not the right fit, it's okay. We'll find them the right fit. And then, and that's had to happen. And we just have to accept that and know that, there is a team of people that is helping this consumer find that right fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that's a good point, that we don't always know the stories. There's so many layers of trauma and things that have happened that may not be on a piece of paper that
Yeah.
we receive on the front side. It may be through their actions and behaviors that some of those things come out. And sometimes we don't ever know the stories of how we got here, with an individual. And so I think that being really flexible with our individuals,
Yeah.
as those things come out. And I think that some of the most in-depth situations came out in homes that they were starting to feel comfortable in. So they had
Absolutely.
never
Yeah.
felt safe enough
Right.
to disclose information. And then they did. And honestly, it changed dynamics because maybe they weren't, comfortable being around males. And then they end up changing homes again or changing placements. And so there's so much just weight to our individuals and, what comes with those transitions and things like that. So I think that, not every transition has to be bad. And we talk about that with new homes, with new managers, that transitions can be a good thing too.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier trying to keep those connections. That's such an important part because a lot of our individuals with transition ends that relationship. And so when they think they're moving, they think they're never speaking to you again. They're never going to see a family again, where it's okay for them to move on. But if we can maintain that relationship in some aspect, we're adding people to their life instead of just taking people away each time.
Yes. And I think we have to remember some of us are business mindset. I did a lot. I had owned my own business and I served on boards, and you would say, what's your goal? What's your win? What's your takeaway? What do you want for the future and stuff? And we get so business focused, and our mindset is, well, it's got to happen on my terms, my way, my time. I've got to, and that's not the way it is in real life. When you're talking about a person's life, you have to consider more than just, okay, well, I'm going to do this with them and I did that. What you need to stop is be like, okay, that is their trauma. That is their past. That is their life. That is their feelings. And we have to not be afraid to help them get through those times and help them find the right family. I'm going to be honest with you. It's the mindset is what you have to have of, this is a human being. This is not a money-making, gig. This is, while it is a blessing, and it has been for me and my family, it is about that human being. I don't know that I'm articulating all of that right.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example. I talk all the time, but I'm very nervous sitting here with you today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, those clients coming in, meeting somebody that's going to be their family they're going to live with, can you imagine the nerves? Can you imagine the behaviors that they have right off the bat? Or maybe once they do feel comfortable. Every consumer is different, so how they react is going to be
Yep.
different. And once they get in the home, we have to be a problem solver and help them figure out how to transition that, help us figure out how to transition with them, and then stop worrying about, I didn't do that well, or
Mm-hmm.
like, let's figure it out. And that's what, again, a team of people's for, and the community of a family atmosphere that we can solve those problems together. It's hard for our consumers. I could go on about the mushy side of things over and over and over. I cry at every ISP,
Mm-hmm.
like I love them with all my heart. But we have to realize that sometimes when you're just looking at paper, this person's on paper and they have a book that goes with them everywhere they go
Mm-hmm.
that tells everything about them, but it really doesn't. Does it tell you that last night they were giggling, telling you what happened during their day? Does the book tell you that they played cards with you and they're getting good and they're winning and they're proud they're winning?
Mm-hmm.
Does the book tell you what their eyes looked like when they saw the ocean for the first time?
Right.
Sorry, I'll get
Yeah.
emotional.
Yeah.
Like, we can't do that. We can't do it like a business. You have to see them as a person and a part of your family. So I'll get emotional every time because I've been doing it so long that I see that win,
Yep.
that we talk about in the business atmosphere. I see that they've met that goal. I see, that they are growing as an individual. Now, if it came a season, even in John's life, where he's like, this isn't working for me
Mm-hmm.
anymore, we have to respect that. While it will break our heart,
Sure.
we would have to respect that. I don't see that happening. He tells
I
everybody that
don't
he's,
either.
he tells everybody
Yeah.
he's our family, and that's good. I had a nephew one time. He didn't come for a family dinner, and he's like, "Where's John?" Like,
Yeah.
they're mad. Where's John? He better be here. So, and then we have a newer consumer, and I don't talk about him as much because I don't know what all I can release.
Sure. Sure.
But he is a joy too. He is just a happy, go lucky individual with autism, and my family just giggles at him. He
Mm-hmm.
says some of the darndest things, and I think my 6-year-old's like, he's squeezing the dog's chicken and he thinks it's awesome,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're like, it's okay. That's, he's probably never heard that noise that, or
Mm-hmm.
is wondering how it's made, how it makes that sound.
Yep.
And so we have to be able to understand, we don't know what they're thinking, what they're feeling. And we have to embrace everybody right where they're at, meet them where they're at. Remember that saying, meet them where they're at. And that's kind of what we have to do. So,
Yeah. And I think that you mentioned it as far as, the paper is part of it. And we know that, this is what an individual looks like on paper, but it misses the good stuff.
Yes.
It misses,
it does.
That time they see the ocean for the first time, or that first time that they've had a birthday cake and the whole family's singing them happy birthday.
Yeah.
And those are the moments that are so impactful on our side of things. It's changing those individuals' lives, and you can't put that on paper. Like,
right? No.
Yes, you can put that they're successful and they want to work on this goal. One of the things that we talk about are transactional goals versus transformational goals. Somebody may need to work on hygiene or chores, but so do we. And we don't focus on that. Like, that's
Right.
not why we're getting out of bed every day. So what are we doing and creating for them that is getting them excited and connected? And you can see it in their face. It's what they talk about. I know, when we have individuals that go to school and they meet friends and they, join sports teams and things like that. Like, those are the impactful things that are changing their lives that a lot of times they've never been able to do, prior to coming into our setting.
And I love it that they get choices to do those things, number one. And I think we also, in our home, we try not to be like the boss or bossy. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, as an adult, I wouldn't want somebody telling me what to do every second of the day. I get told what to do at the day program. I get told what to do on the oats bus. I get told what to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's more of a choice. Hey, bud, I need to do your laundry. Could you bring it? Could you bring it, out of your room or whatever you're working on? Because
Mm-hmm.
his is, life skills like that. So, you know, make it more of a fun task than bring me this now,
Yeah.
or
Or
gosh
it's
dang it, you're
Tuesday at
dirty.
2:00.
Yeah, your
We have to
laundry's
do
all
this.
over the floor. Yeah, instead of just being the nag and we're mind you, sometimes the danger's coming, you're like, stop, you can't do that. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, come on, let's just be. I look at it like I wouldn't want somebody to boss me 24/7 and micromanage me,
Right.
so I don't micromanage them. I kind of set the scene. Hey, tonight we're gonna have to wash your lawn. Like tell them ahead of time
Yep.
instead of waiting, to create a fight or an issue later, or for them to feel like they're being told what to do 24/7. So
Yeah.
there's
Prediction's a big deal for
yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
anyone, but
Yeah.
especially a lot of our individuals.
Yeah. So, that's kind of, again, just how you treat them.
Mm-hmm.
Treat them with respect. If you want respect, treat them with respect. So that's kind of our philosophy in our home. So,
Yeah. Just from your experience, and I know we share some of the humor that happens.
yeah.
How do you take an experience and really learn from it, sometimes laugh from it, and
Mhm.
move forward to continue on with whatever the task is?
So I have some good ones. I say all the time that we need a camera crew. And sometimes I'm like, man, I need to write a book on some of this. But
Mhm.
I used to be a more serious individual. Obviously, I teach my kids, we don't talk bad, we don't say bad words, we don't do anything.
Mhm.
So there's a lot I've learned over the years to like let little things go. Some funny stories though is, and I won't say it because we're on podcast, I'll bleep it out. But, my new consumer learned a bad word at day program, but he didn't know it was bad.
Yeah.
And so I'm giving him his lunchbox and he's going out the door to get on the bus. And I'm like, have a great day, buddy. And he's like, you too, bleepity bleep, and you're
Yep.
like, huh? But I knew, he wasn't being vicious, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so I had to giggle and I had to call a program manager and be like, you're not going to believe what happened to me. Cause, as an adult in our world, we'd be like, if somebody else called me that, it wouldn't go down that way.
Right.
So you have to realize sometimes they don't even understand what they're doing or what they're feeling or how to articulate something. So I had to giggle at that. Of course, my husband did too. He's like, well, you got away with that. Yeah. But then there's times when they are mad because they haven't felt seen or heard, or they're having a bad day, or there was a trigger for reliving trauma and you are getting cussed at, and my kids are like, oh, like what's going to happen,
Right.
And so then you do have to, help de-escalate, with that individual and then just explain to your kids, hey, he or she was having a really bad day, so we got to help teach them that that's not how they handle it, use everything as a teachable moment, is kind of what I say. And then, I think that just don't sweat the small stuff, pick your battles.
Mhm.
And we have to laugh at some of that. My husband secretly is a funny individual. He comes across very shy and people wouldn't know because he's pretty reserved,
Sure.
humble, which I'm glad. But for one of our consumers, wanted to be the police officer off Reno 911. So my husband's spray painting boots white so he could be new boot goofing, like that's not something we would normally do. That's
Right.
not our family's out there spraying, but if it makes that consumer feel seen and feel, special, he's going to go spray paint a pair of boots and we're all going to giggle about it, know? And then, like I said, we have to find the funny things in life. If you don't, all of us could, we could sit around and be negative all day long, but let's try to find the positive and something to giggle in all those scenarios. And so that's kind of what we do. And what I would suggest that any new host home coming in, just remember, there's going to be always a scenario that you're going to be like, what just happened?
Yeah.
I mean, I've had those moments where I'm like, did that just happen?
Right.
Like what?
We say it all the time,
yeah.
like, we can't make it up.
No,
like,
you can't
how did
make it
this
up.
happen? How did we get here?
No. And so, again, I'm glad I can call my program manager or one of the program managers and be like, oh, I got to tell you the story.
Yep.
Like, because nobody else would believe this
Yep.
just went down. Yeah. And
Yep.
so.
So I think a big piece of being a host home is making sure that you take care of yourself. I feel like you're super busy. You have a large family. You have add-ons to your family with,
Yes.
your Restoring Hope individuals. Um, and a big piece of that's taking care of yourself. So how, when you get in those moments where you're feeling overwhelmed or you've had really stressful situations with our individuals,
Yeah.
how do you take care of yourself so that you can continue to pour into them?
Yeah. Good question. For me, my faith is very important.
Mm-hmm.
So my, mornings after they all get on the oats bus, I'll maybe drink a cup of coffee or a glass of tea and read my Bible. And Dave and I are very intentional about Dave needs some time to go. He'll go hunting or he'll go to classic car shows, but then he'll let me go do something without, 10 tag-alongs, you know what
Yep.
I mean, or whatever.
Yep.
So we're very intentional about, finding what we like to do in life and still have those enjoyable moments. Um, sending your individual to relief is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would recommend people do, utilize that. That's
Yep.
such a benefit for us as host homes that is wonderful that we need to maybe, remember to use that. So I'm a different individual. I love to stay busy.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, for kind of my, rejuvenation or I love to just go bless somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I do it with consumers and I'll do it without consumers. So I like to just get in my vehicle and I'll go ask Salvation Army what I can do today to help, or I will grab a bag of food and deliver it to the senior citizen housing. That's for me, that makes me happy.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I do a lot of ministry work. I love to give back to our community. Restoring Hope has allowed me to do that. And again, I'm going to get teary-eyed, but I did, when I sold my business and I prayed and I really wanted a job and something I could do to earn money for my family, but still give back and be able to do ministry. And Restoring Hope has allowed me to do that. So I'll forever be grateful to you and all the individuals at Restoring Hope, because that has just really been a blessing to me and my family. And, I talk about blessings all the time. Another blessing that we have not brought up is I adopted a handicapped little boy when he was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to see that kind of the side of our disability, consumers that we have that are disabled. I got to see that side years ago, and I saw how they were treated and
Mm-hmm.
how that they were treated differently and
Yep.
maybe excluded from things. And so this has been such a blessing for our family because number one, he sees other individuals like him.
Yep.
And he knows that, mama's never going to let him feel less than. And he will make comments and statements and he'll be like, Mom, you do, because he talks a certain way, you do good for them. You are kind to them, just like me. You won't give up on them like you didn't give up on me.
Mm-hmm.
He makes statements like that you're like, as a mom, you're like, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been a blessing all the way around. I can talk about, so many ways it's been a blessing, but for my kids, my kids have lived a very blessed life all the way around. And so they love to give back and help. But for him, just to be around individuals like him and that he can see, oh, they have challenges writing too. Oh, they have challenges, in this area or playing sports. It has been the biggest blessing for our family all the way around. I cannot stress that enough, but I got to see both sides of it when they do get treated poorly or differently and when they get treated like rock stars. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with how integrated you are into communities and school settings and your previous business ministry, you have so many different eyes into a lot of those situations for the good and the bad. And so, I mean, I just know belonging to the same communities that you do, how big of a blessing you've been, not only to Restoring Hope, the, kids that you've brought in through foster care, but also the community as a whole.
well, thank you for saying that. I don't like to get compliments, on myself very much, but I do appreciate that. I don't know what else to say, but again, I feel like that I've been so fortunate to have the right people in my corner and see the good that I want to do and the good that I have done. It is more than one person. So, for example, and I'm going to go back to, Chuck and Jeff. So they have great hearts and they had a vision for the company and they wanted to see our consumers and the people we serve taken very good care of. They wanted to create an atmosphere where you were proud to work for their company. And then, I know that they said it was very key to them to pick, specific people who could make that happen. And that's why I said I love it when they gave you credit, because then they brought you on board and some of the others. And you guys were very meaningful, and you made sure that when you continued on and you grew the company, you didn't lose that why, that purpose in the beginning. Like I said in the beginning, I will sit back and watch a lot of times, and I'm very intentional about seeing somebody's true heart and where they're going, how they're motivated. Do they walk with integrity? And so I think for me, I've been allowed to do a lot of great things in the community. Number one, God has always, been good to me, and he's going to bless me, and he's gifted me. But he's brought the right people in my life at the right time. And he brought Restoring Hope to my family at the right time. And that wouldn't have been there had, Chuck and Jeff not been intentional about how they wanted their company, and their hearts weren't in the right place, bringing you on board. And you've brought how many program managers and oh my goodness, Whitney's very, key, and Amber and all those people way back in the beginning. As I've watched the company grow, again, I'm the peon, and I want to be the peon in the room. I've been in charge before. I don't want to be in charge. But what I'm saying is, and this is not me, trying to suck up to you or anything, but just think about that just like me and Kim Yates and the Kathy and Dawn, and Dawn Squires and all those individuals, our family has been able to bless other families and be a blessing to our consumers, and, and bless our own family because of the intentionality of the people behind the scenes.
Sure.
Whether that's a guardian, a CHS worker, a program manager, or all the way up to the head honchos. So, that stuff doesn't just happen. I think that I have been able to do a lot of things in my adult life. I was nobody special, grew up, just like everybody else. But I've been able to do a lot of great things in my adulthood. In 2013, we won National Foster Parents of the Year. 2014, National Adoptive Parents. They flew us to speak to, congressmen and, help with legislation about how to make foster care better. And, I think that, through the foster care side, I met wonderful workers, social workers who, taught me a lot. And so I think that me being able to see those different things and then join a company like Restoring Hope, I can see, wow, like this blows a lot of things I've got to participate in out of the water. And then I've got to see how, because I sit back, like I said, I've been in charge. I've had lots of employees before, and I've got to serve on the school board where I was the vice president. And so I've got to do great things and see great things. So now when I sit back and I watch how other people do it, you probably feel the same way sometimes, Staci, being in your role, sometimes you'll sit back and be like, yeah, they know what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to say it, but you're just taking it all in, and you're like, and that's the way I feel about our host homes. And like I said, even all the way down to the me, the peon or the CHS worker, I just sit back and I watch, and I'll be like, you know what? Yeah, this is a wonderful company who's done wonderful things, blessed a lot of, consumers. We have over 300 now individuals we serve. But it's been such a blessing to our community, to our families. And again, by us being able to take that respite and have that free time, and we can still, be able to go and do the things we love and see the people we love. And, I think there's no way to articulate that. I'm trying my best, but there's no way to articulate what the vision was years ago for Chuck and Jeff, and to see all the way down to me, I just, what they've done and how now I'm a part of it. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so, again, I cry at every ISP, and I'm a crier. But I believe with all my heart that everybody who is a part of Restoring Hope, the CHS workers, the guardians, have a great heart, and they are doing it for the right reasons. And I can't always say that about some of the other places I've been. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and I think that, as a host home, like you said, as a guardian, support coordinator, every role is so impactful.
yeah.
And I know we talk about it at board meetings, we talk about it at managers meetings. The host homes are at the center of supporting the individual. And if we do our job right, it will be to support the host home. The host home has way more influence into an individual's life than anyone else.
Yeah.
Host homes are with them day in and day out. And I know that's something we talk about at every manager's meeting, that host homes are at the center of everything. And so we've all been on those teams where, somebody that sees them once a month or once a year comes in as the expert. For Restoring Hope, the host home is the expert for us. And we have to lean into learning from the host home and again, we may not know, the host home may not know as far as the why behind it, but the host home is the center of everything that we do at Restoring Hope. And I think that we've been able to find and keep the right families and homes because we align on that, that family connection, relationships are at the center of everything that we do day in and day out.
You guys make us feel valued and important, like we matter, but you're also very appreciative. And so, for example, when one of my children were in the hospital and very, very ill, the support was overwhelming. So it wasn't that you just cared for us because we cared for a consumer that's, with your agency, you genuinely cared. And so when you feel that, you are like, whoa, like that's amazing, number one. And then it makes you want to stay with the agency. It makes you want to do, but it's a ripple effect, I guess is what I'm getting at. I'm glad you see that because we are with our consumers day in and day out. And I've said a lot of the positive, and there's been days that it's been like, whew, but for us to be able to reach out and get the help, like there's times that I've been like, okay, I just need to know what to do here. It doesn't matter how much you think when you're working with DMH and you're teetering on, is that a rights restriction or can my consumer do that? Just the support of us being able to pick up the phone and that our program manager answers the phone. If our program manager can't, we have the supervisor. I love that aspect. I love the checks and balances too. I'm very much so by the book. Like I have read Restoring Hope's policy and procedure manual. I know, like
we're probably the only two that have,
know, right? But I do. I'm by the book, and my program manager should be like, you've read yes, I've read it, and so I'm a by the book kind of person, and whenever I have that question though, and I don't think I know the answer, I need somebody to answer the phone, and so I'm very grateful that we get that support with Restoring Hope. So with you all giving us that support, it makes us want to support our consumers, even more. It makes you like, yeah, I can do this. I can even take on maybe the harder one. I can take on the one with the challenging behaviors because I have a team of people behind me. So that made the difference, because, the challenging behaviors that I saw with teenagers in foster care, I've seen some even more challenging behaviors with the consumers that we serve.
Absolutely.
So, again, I think that's, helped me to, be able to deal with some of those. But also, I think the supports that we're given all the way around helps us help our consumers to the best of our ability. So,
yeah. So just in any advice that you have, I know you've gave so much of your experience, if we have a family that's really on the fence of, is this for me? Is it not? What advice do you have for them?
Well, they can call. I mean, I'll bend their ear for sure, but no, I would just, I would tell them, maybe to really think about it, kind of like I did, maybe come to a function and see our consumers, our individuals. Like I love it that we get to do the trial home visit beforehand, really encourage that. Advice would be kind of what I've said in this podcast, like stay positive, don't sweat the small stuff. Whatever you have in your mindset, because lots of times they have this idea of, oh, I'm going to get this consumer. They're going to look like this. They're going to act like that. My young daughter said it best years ago. She's like, Mom, can we get a Chinese little boy with Down syndrome? I'm like, honey, it doesn't work that way. This isn't Burger King. We don't order them up. Hey, can you send me a Chinese little boy with Down syndrome? You know what I mean? And that was just, I think she saw a video of that and she's like, oh, Mom, we need that, And so I do feel like that sometimes people have this idea in their head that it's going to look this way or it's going to be this way. They really need to talk to some of, I call us the OGs. There's people that's been there longer than me, but I would really encourage them to reach out to us and talk to us and, and then take those moments to kind of see what we do. That's what I would encourage. But like I said, I encourage everybody. I, preach Restoring Hope from the rooftop now. But for somebody that's on the fence, I'm glad they're on the fence because that means they're intentionally thinking, can I do this? Number one,
Yeah.
they're putting thought into it. It isn't just, I'm going to do this because I want a paycheck. And people say that all the time. They used to say that to me in foster care. Foster parents do it for the paycheck. Are you kidding me? We got like $300 a month. I had teenagers that could eat a large pizza by themselves in one setting. Like
Yep.
you had to have financial stability. You don't, but I do see, that is a stigma too.
Yep.
So if they're thinking about it, they're not thinking about it for that wrong reason. They're thinking about it because they're like, can I do this? Would this be a good fit for my family? So I would encourage that thinking, number one. And number two, just say, ask as many questions as you can, get those answers. It may not be for everybody. I mean, while I'm saying, oh, I love it, somebody else may be like, meh, it's not for my family. So again, asking questions and talking to some of us OGs that have done it for a long time, pick our brain, and that's what I would recommend. Honestly, word of mouth does more, and somebody's experienced, me saying what my experience has been, is better than anything you can read in a book or on a piece of paper.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And I think that that's so true as far as the stigmas that come with it.
Mm-hmm.
But we talk about it. If somebody is going to do this line of work and be successful at it, it's a greater cause.
Mm-hmm.
There's always an easier way to make money than being a host home. It is a lifestyle that people commit to. And honestly, it's no different than on the program manager side. Like, crisis situations don't happen at 2:00 on a Tuesday.
Right.
It's going to be the evenings, the weekends, the holidays that we're dealing with disruptions and crisis situations. And so I feel like those homes that have success and, continue and are able to be successful, they really do align with the values that we have and are committed to a greater cause of helping individuals.
And I kind of can sum it up by this, like, would I have helped John G without getting some financial benefit? Yes, I would have. So think about that. Are you a person who loves to help others? Are you a person who would pass by the person who really needed help? Or would you be the person that would, be like, hey, I want to help this person, or can I help you? Or, like whatever the scenario is, I'm the person who would be like, what can I do to help you? In general. It's just a benefit that we're helping someone and we're getting compensated for it. So I agree with everything you just said. And I think that it isn't, we make that decision because there is a financial benefit. It's we make that decision because we would have helped. We want to help regardless.
Yeah.
And that's just a benefit. And some of our consumers are so, sometimes I don't want to say, I don't know if high needs is the right word, but they're, okay, so that person can't work outside the home. And so they will need an income. And so I do value that you guys will assess the situation. And, my John is high maintenance and doesn't require much, but somebody else's consumer might require a whole lot.
Yep.
And they can't work outside the home. And so, like you said, it does impact their everyday life. So I think that our mindset is that we want to be a good individual and help people no matter what. And like I said in the beginning, I have a servant's heart. Kim Yates has a lot of our host homes have servant's hearts. They love to help. And so they would have helped regardless. It's just a blessing that there is some compensation that they are helping as well. So,
yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, giving us insight into the day-to-day that comes with being a host home and being a part of Restoring Hope.
So thank you. Appreciate it.